I am running to serve Virginia because I love Virginia. It's the place I grew up. It's the place that made me who I am. It's the place that I decided to move back home to raise my 3 daughters not far from the community, well, in the community that my husband and I both grew up in. And the reality is that 3 years ago, my 3 daughters, all of a sudden in one decision, had fewer rights than I did, growing up in the exact same community in the exact same place. And what was notable in that moment was the outreach that I got as a member of Congress, the outreach that I got, calls and texts and emails from people I had known throughout my life. People, frankly, that I didn't realize that all of them actually knew I was in Congress. But this issue was so clearly one that drew them back towards recognition that what happens in politics, what happens in state capitals, what happens in Washington, D.C., it impacts aspects of our lives. And what I remember sort of most notably is some of the most heart-wrenching stories and some of the most agonized responses to the Dobbs decision came from women my mother's age and older, women who remember what it was like before Roe versus Wade. And I had one woman say, well, you know, I was always that responsible friend. And so I had friends who would come to me and say, I need you to drive me. And this woman recounted to me the places that she had driven, a couple friends along the way, where they went to receive an abortion at that time illegal, in places where their medical care wasn't what it should have been, in places that endangered their lives. And this woman said, I'm telling you this. I've never really told anybody this. Not only was I the responsible friend who drove people places, but I was the responsible friend who kept their secrets. But I think that now you need to know me, talking to me, you need to know what it was like when we didn't know if our friends would survive, when we were afraid because they couldn't go to a doctor. And I have women my age and friends and family who, because of pregnancy challenges, and in some cases pregnancy loss, have decided not to pursue having additional children as they once thought they would, because they're afraid in the states they live of what that could mean if they had another complication. And yet, today, on this 3rd anniversary of the Dobbs decision, it's important to note that the ability of someone to have a conversation, a private conversation with their doctor, is not a protected option or conversation in so many states. And indeed, Virginia's the last state, the only state in the South that hasn't further restricted abortion access since the Dobbs decision. And while I am focused on all the kitchen table issues and all of the priorities of Virginia, standing up for Virginians, recognizing the impact of the attacks on the federal workforce and the uneasiness and insanity of the on-again, off-again trade wars, and all of the impacts of the chaos coming out of Washington, threats to Medicaid, threats to food security programs, threats to rural hospitals, it's also important that we have a governor who will say unequivocally, I may be someone in elected office, but I do not have a right to dictate the conversations that you can have with your doctor.